Hello everyone. So in the previous session, we have seen tasks and processes. We have seen the different states of a process and state transitions. So in the next topic, we have threads. So we have seen processes and the process states and the state transition between different processes. So what is a thread then? A thread is the primitive that can execute code. So a thread is a single sequential flow of control within a process. So if you look at the thread, it looks just like a process because that is also an execution that is going on. So, but it is a single sequential flow of control within a process. So thread is also known as a lightweight process. So these thread are part of a process. So there are different threads which are part of a process. They share the same address space. That means they share the data memory, code memory, and the heap memory area. So data memory and code memory. So what is this heap memory? So heap memory is also a part of the memory space, which is used just like stack to store temporarily some data, but not in an organized form, right? So the stack means things which are put in an organized manner, right? So that's why we call it a stack memory. Whereas in heap, we just dump it, we just dump some data. So the part of the memory which is used for temporarily storing some data and getting it back whenever required, right? Unlike stack, which is organized, this heap memory is not in that organized manner. Okay, so what we mean to say is these threads, they share the same address space of the process. So that means they share the data memory, code memory, and heap memory area, which belongs to the process. So these threads, they maintain their own thread status. Just like there is a process status, there is a thread status, that is CPU register values, then the program counter, and the stack. That means these threads do not have their own data memory or code memory, but the threads have their own stack memory. Okay, so the memory model for a process and its associated threads is shown in this figure. What you can see is, so this is the memory organization of a process. We have seen this in the previous class. That is, there is code memory, data memory, and stack. So in the process, there might be multiple threads, right? So the stack for those threads are shared. I mean, is that area belongs to the process. So if this is a stack memory of the process, so that area of stack memory of process is shared between different threads. So here there is stack memory for thread 1, here there is stack memory for thread 2. So if there are n number of threads, the whole stack is divided, or it is shared by n number of threads. Whereas the threads do not have their own code memory or data memory, whereas they share that code memory and data memory with the process. Okay, so they do not maintain the different code memory and data memory for threads, but they have it same as the process. So this is the memory organization of a process and its associated threads. So we know that there is not only one thread which is running. Sometimes there might be a single thread, but in normal cases, there will be multiple threads inside the process. So a process or a task in embedded application may be a complex one or a lengthy one, and it may contain various sub operations, right? Like getting input from IO devices, or performing some internal calculations or operations, or updating some IO devices. So there might be multiple functions that are happening inside the process or in an application. So if all the subfunctions of a task are executed in sequence, that means one is executed first, then the other one is executed, then the next one is executed. If it is executed sequentially, then the CPU utilization may not be efficient. So why we say it is not efficient is sometimes the process might be waiting for an input from an input device, from the user. At that time, the CPU enters the wait state for the event. Okay, the CPU enters the wait state. CPU will be waiting for that particular event to happen. That is some input to happen from the user. So in that case, if it is executed sequentially, if one process is waiting, then the whole process execution also enters a wait state, right? The whole process execution will be kept under waiting till that user input arrives, then it will be continued, and after that completes, the other process will start. So this is not the efficient way of utilizing CPU. So instead of this single sequential execution, if the task or process is split between different threads carrying out the different sub-functionalities of the process. That means the entire process, if it is divided into different sub-functions, and for each sub-functions, if there are different threads, then the CPU can be effectively utilized. And when the thread corresponding to the IO operation enters the wait state, another thread which do not require that IO event for their operation can be switched into execution, right? Suppose one thread is executing, that enters the wait state for some user input. There might be some other thread which does not, or which does not depend on that particular user input. So that can be scheduled and that can be executed. Only the thread which requires the user input, that is under wait state, but not the whole process, right? So this particular thing leads to more speedy execution of the process and efficient utilization of the processor time and resources, right? So this is the concept of multi-threading. So instead of having a single thread of execution, if you have multiple threads of execution, so if the process is split into multiple threads, which executes a portion of the process, each thread will execute one portion of the process. There will be a main thread, and the rest of the threads will be created within the main thread. So the thread whichever starts first, that is called the main thread, and that main thread will create its child thread. Okay, the rest of the threads, they will be created by the main thread. The multi-threaded architecture of a process, it can be seen in this diagram. Okay, I hope this is visible. So this is entirely one process, and there are different threads here. There are 3 threads, as you can see. What you can see in this is the threads share the same code memory as the process, data memory as the process, but they have different stack memories. That is actually derived from the process's stack memory, right? It's different stack memories, then different registers for each threads. So there are 3 threads. This is thread 1, thread 2, thread 3. So this thread 1 means it is the main thread. It is the thread that is created first. So this main thread, it will create new threads. So those new threads are called children or child threads. Okay. So what you can see in this main program or the main thread program is it's just a pseudo code void main void. So you can see there is a comment here, create child. It will create a child. So this particular instruction is to create a child. Create child thread 1. Okay, create child thread 1. So the first child thread, it will create this child thread. This is create thread is a function to create a new thread. Okay, so then there are some parameters. Here there is a parameter ID of the next thread, new thread, that is child thread 1. So it will create a new thread with the name child thread 1. Okay, so in that child thread, it is another function. You know, you are going to write something. Here some operation for that particular thread. Okay, similarly, just like it has created child thread 1, it can create a child thread 2, right? The same function, but the ID here is child thread 2. So it will create another child thread, that is the thread 3 in the process. So child thread 2, you know, it requires another function for its execution. So that thing is written here. Okay, so some code is written here. Here some code is written. So there are multiple threads. If there are n number of threads, actually the main process, it will create n number of threads, and those will be executed in the same process. So this is how the organization of a thread inside a process looks like, and how its memory is shared, how the thread creates a new threads, and how those threads work, right? So here you can see the process which has got multiple threads or multi-threads. So what are the advantages of using this multi-threading concept is it gives better memory utilization. That means multiple threads of the same process, they share the address space for data memory, right? They share the same address space. It also reduces the complexity of inter-thread communication, since variables can be shared across the threads. So the communication between different threads, that becomes simple, right? And also better memory utilization. Next is speedy execution of the process. This we have already seen. Since the process is split into different threads, when one of the threads enter a wait state, the whole process will not wait, right? The CPU can be utilized by other threads of the process which do not require that event which the other thread is waiting for processing, right? That means if one of the threads keep waiting for a particular input, other threads need not wait. They can go into execution if they are not dependent on that particular input. Okay. Next is efficient CPU utilization. that means the CPU is utilized or engaged all the time. If one of the thread is waiting, other thread will occupy the CPU. The CPU will not keep waiting for the for any time. It will be utilized or engaged all the time. So these are the advantages of using the concept of multi-threading. Okay. So next we have some standards for threads. So these standards, they deal with the different standards available for thread creation and management. So they are utilized by the operating systems for thread creation and thread management. So any operating system, it cannot just randomly create new threads and manage it. So there are some standards it has to follow. Okay. So it is a set of thread class libraries. The commonly available thread class libraries are POSIX threads, Win32 threads, Java threads, and there are some more. Okay. So in your syllabus only POSIX threads is mentioned. So we will go for POSIX threads. So what does POSIX stand for? POSIX stands for Portable Operating System Interface. Okay. Portable Operating System Interface. So in that there are again different versions or different extensions. Okay. The POSIX.4 standard deals with the real-time extensions, and POSIX.4a standard, it deals with the thread extensions. Okay. POSIX standard library for thread creation and management is pthreads. So pthreads is the standard library for thread creation and management in POSIX threads. Okay, the pthreads library, it defines the set of POSIX thread creation and management functions in C language. So the language used for defining in the pthreads library is C. So there are some primitives in this particular pthread library. So this primitive pthread create. Pthread create is a primitive or a function. So this is used to create a new thread. Okay. So this particular primitive or a function is used to create a new thread. The name of the function that the thread is used for running is the start function. This primitive creates a new thread for running the function start function. So the start function is the name of the function. It is written as a pointer here. Okay. So pthread create, then pthread t underscore t star new thread ID. The ID of the new thread is written here. Then constant pthread attribute t. Okay. So here pthread t is the handle to the newly created thread. This is a handle to the newly created thread, and pthread attribute t is the data type for holding the thread attributes. Okay. So here you hold the thread attributes, different attributes of the thread. So here you have, okay, the start function is the function the thread is going to execute. This is the function that the thread is going to execute. And the arguments that you can see, arguments is the arguments for the start function. You're writing what are the arguments, some functions for the start function. Once you create a new thread, okay, on successful creation of a pthread create associates the thread control block corresponding to the newly created thread to the variable of type pthread t. So here, this function pthread create, it will associate the thread control block. Just like for each process there is process control block, similarly for each thread there is thread control block. Okay, so the thread control block corresponding to the newly created thread. Newly created thread is the new thread ID. Whatever the newly created thread you have, that is the new thread ID. So that is associated with the type pthread t. Okay, so that is associated with the type pthread t. So this is one of the functions in POSIX threads. The function is pthread create. So this is used to create a new thread. Okay, so next you have pthread join. This is another primitive. So this primitive, it blocks the current thread and waits until the completion of the thread pointed by it. Okay, so currently executing thread, current thread, that will be blocked, and it will wait until this new thread is completed. Okay, so it blocks the current thread and waits until the completion of the thread pointed by it. Here the thread pointed is new thread. Till this thread is completed, the current thread is blocked. So that is for pthread join. So all the POSIX thread calls, they return an integer. The return value of 0 indicates the success of the call. Okay, so if when you return, thread calls, they return some integers. If there are any errors, there will be some error numbers like -1 or something. So if they return a 0, that means the call is successful. So you'll see with an example. So there is an example. To write a multi-threaded application to print hello I am in main thread from the main thread and hello I am in new thread 5 times each using these primitives whatever we have learned, pthread create and pthread join. Okay, that means from the main thread you have to write hello I am in main thread, you have to print hello I am in main thread 5 times, and from the new thread you have to print hello I am in new thread 5 times. Okay, so you have to use these primitives pthread create and pthread join. Okay, so how to write this? So it is written in C and it is written in POSIX thread standard. So here we assume that the application is running on an OS where POSIX library is available. So you can directly call this or include this header file pthread.h. As we have seen, pthread is the library which has this POSIX threads, thread creation and management functions. So along with this stdio.h and standard library.h, we have to include pthread.h, hash include pthread.h, then hash include stdlib.h, stdi.h. So you write a function for a new thread for printing hello I am in new thread. So this is a function for a new thread to print hello I am in new thread, and you are going to do it 5 times. Okay, so this is the function void star new thread void thread arguments. Okay, this indicates it's a pointer. So in integer I comma j, so two int variables you are using here. So you have to print hello I'm in new thread 5 times. So you will keep that in a loop for j is equal to 0, j less than 5, j plus plus. So this will print, this will execute the statements inside this for 5 number of times, right? So printf hello I'm in new thread. So this statement will print hello I am in new thread, and since you have put this in a loop, it will be repeated 5 times. So after printing each time, you have to call a delay, right? So this function is for a delay for I is equal to 0, I less than 10,000, I plus plus with a semicolon. So it keeps waiting here till the I starts from 0 and becomes 1 less than 10,000. So after printing each time, you call a delay and you repeat this 5 number of times. Okay, so then return null. Return null means that that's the successful call, right? So every function call, it will return a value. Every thread call returns a value. If it returns a 0, that means the call is successful. That's what we have seen. So this is for a new thread. So now we have to write the main thread function. Yeah, this is the start of the main thread. Okay, so int main void int I comma j, right? Int I comma j, so just like we have done here. Then pthread t tcb. So pthread t is the handle for the newly created thread. So you have to create the new thread for executing the new thread function. To create the new thread for executing new thread function. So there is a condition, right? If pthread create and tcb null, new thread null. So what we are checking here is that new thread that you are creating, it should not be already there. Okay, it should not be already there, and there shouldn't be any tcb already associated with it. If that is the thing, or if there is a tcb which is available for the new thread, okay, so then only a new thread will be created. So if at all it is not available, okay, so then the new thread creation will be failed. So at that time you have to print error in creating new thread, then return -1. Return -1 indicates there is an error. Okay, when you return -1, that indicates there is an error. Okay, so then you have to print, if a new thread is not created, that means you are in the main thread itself. So you print for j is equal to 0, j less than 5, j plus plus, printf hello I am in main thread. So this also has to be done 5 times. That's why you put it in the for loop. Then the same thing. This is for delay. You be there for some time, right? Doing nothing. That means there is a delay. Then repeat this 5 times. Okay. Next, here you are trying to create that new thread. If at all it is not creating, then you have to return with an error that it has not created. I mean, error in creating new thread. So if it has created, if there is an, here it will create a new thread, right? So if at all it created a new thread, then you have to join that new thread. Okay. To join that new thread, there is another primitive pthread join, along with some parameters TCB and null. Okay. TCB is the task control block. Null means so nothing, zero. Fine. So if at all that TCB, right? If at all the TCB is not associated with the thread, that means it is null. Then you have not joined that particular thread. Okay. So if at all the TCB associated, it is not, if the TCB is not associated with the particular new thread that you are supposed to join, that means you are not successful in joining that particular thread. So that means there is a thread join failed. That's why you have to report that error or print that error. So error in thread join. Okay. So if you couldn't join that new thread, then there is error in thread join, and return that error. So to return, error, just like here, return -1, here also you have to write return -1. And at the end, there is return 1. That indicates the completion of this main thread. So this is the main thread. In this main thread, you are going to write hello, I'm in main thread 5 times. Here you are creating new thread, and in that new thread, you are printing hello, I'm in new thread 5 times, right? And to do this, you're going to use this pthread create and pthread join POSIX primitives. So the threads are created, but how they are terminated? The termination of a thread, that can happen in different ways. One is the natural termination, other one is forced termination. So in natural termination, there is a call made by the thread, that is pthread exit. The thread completes its execution and returns to the main thread through a simple return. Okay, if it completes the execution and returns to the main thread through a simple return, that is a natural termination. Or by executing pthread exit, if there is a pthread exit function written, so it will exit that particular thread and go to the main thread function. So that is a natural termination. Then what is a forced termination? So this can be achieved by the call pthread cancel. So pthread exit means the thread itself exits and returns to the main thread. So that is natural termination. Whereas pthread cancel means this is done by the main thread. Okay, pthread cancel followed by the new the thread's ID. So that is done by the main thread. The main thread will forcefully terminate or end the child thread created by, or through the termination of the main thread with exit or exec functions. So if the main thread associated with that child thread, if the main thread terminates, then its child threads will also terminate. Okay. So if the main thread or the parent thread terminates, the child thread created by the main thread are forcefully terminated. So this pthread cancel is called by a thread to terminate another thread. So normally the main thread will call this to terminate its child threads. Okay. So the two types of termination of the threads, one is natural termination, other one is forced termination. So next you have the concept of thread preemption. So what do you mean by preemption? So we have seen in the process states, a process can be preempted. Once it is scheduled and once it is running, it can be preempted in the sense before it completes the execution. If the CPU allocated is deallocated from it and given to some other process, then it is called preemption. Similarly, a thread can be preempted. Okay, it's the act of preempting the currently running thread. That means stopping the currently running thread temporarily. You stop it temporarily. Okay, so it is performed for sharing the CPU time among all the threads. So if you want to share the CPU time between all the threads, you have to stop the currently executing thread and give the CPU to some other thread in some scheduling pattern. Okay. The execution switching among the threads is known as thread context switching. The switching among the threads is known as thread context switching, and this is dependent on the operating system's scheduler and also the type of the thread. Okay. So there are different types of the threads. What are the types of the threads? Types of the threads are user level threads and kernel level threads. The user level threads, they do not have kernel or OS support, and they exist solely in the running process. So these threads, they are present in the presently running process. So even if a process contains multiple user level threads, the OS treats it as a single thread. Okay. Uh, in the process, there might be multiple user level threads, but from the OS perspective, it is a single thread, and it will not switch the execution among different threads of it. Okay. So the process should take the responsibility of scheduling each thread as and when required, right? So that means user level threads of a process are non-preemptive from the OS perspective. That means at a time, it will consider only all the threads as a single thread. The process will take the responsibility of scheduling each thread. But from the OS point of view, it is a single thread which is running. So there is no question of preemption here. So it is non-preemptive. The execution switching, it happens only when the currently executing user level thread is voluntarily blocked. The switching happens only when the user level thread is blocked. So there is no OS intervention, and the system calls are involved in the context switching of user level threads. Okay, so this makes context switching of user level threads very fast because there is no intervention from the operating system. Whereas the next category of or the type of threads is the kernel level threads. The kernel level threads are individual units of execution, and the OS treats each of these threads as separate threads. Okay, so the OS interrupts the execution of the currently running kernel thread and switches the execution of another kernel thread based on the scheduling policies implemented by the OS. That means it can interrupt one thread and put another thread into execution. That means the kernel level threads are preemptive. Okay, so this involves lots of kernel overhead because OS is involved in this, and also involves system calls for context switching. So however, the kernel threads, they maintain a clear layer of abstraction and allow threads to use system calls independently. Okay, so that means these kernel level threads, they are preemptive. That means the OS directly sees these as individual threads, and they involve in switching between different kernel level threads. So that's about user level and kernel level threads. So next we have different binding models. So binding models or thread binding models are ways for binding the user level threads with kernel level threads. So these types of threads we have seen, user level and kernel level threads. So they are bound with one another. That means some user level threads should be bound with some kernel level threads. So based on how they are bound, there are different models for binding. So one is many to one model, the other one is one to one model, and the other one is many to many model. In many to one model, many user level threads are bound to one kernel level thread. Okay, many user level threads are bound to one kernel level threads. Many user level threads are bound or mapped to a single kernel thread. So here the kernel treats all the user level threads as a single thread. Okay, the kernel treats all the user level threads as a single thread. That is always like that because user level threads are considered as a single thread, and the execution switching among the user level threads happens when a currently executing user level thread voluntarily blocks itself or relinquishes the CPU. So we have seen this, right, in user level threads. Execution switching can happen only when the currently executing thread blocks itself or it relinquishes or gives up the CPU. So examples for this many to one model are Solaris green threads or GNU portable threads. So they are different threads used in different operating systems, right? The P thread example we have seen, that is also an example for many to one thread model. The next kind of thread binding model is one-to-one model. In one-to-one model, each user level thread is bound to kernel or system level thread. That means one user level thread is bound to one kernel level thread. Okay, for each user level thread, there is one kernel level thread. So examples for one-to-one model is Windows XP and T2000 Linux threads. They are all one-to-one model, one-to-one thread binding model. Okay, modified pthread example. So that example is actually, we have not seen that in this particular class. Okay, that is an example for one-to-one model. Next, there is many to many model. Here, many user level threads are mapped to many kernel level threads. Okay, many user level threads are mapped to many kernel level threads. So the example for this is Windows NT or 2000 with one package called thread fiber package. So that's an example for many to many model. So this is about the thread binding models. We have seen types of threads, user level threads and kernel level threads, and how they are bound together using different models, that is many to one model and one to one model and many to many model. So next you have a very important thing, that is the differences between thread and process. So we will just summarize the differences between the threads and the processes. A thread is a single unit of execution, and we know it is a part of a process, right? It is a single unit of execution and it's a part of a process, whereas a process is a program in execution and the process contains one or more threads. A process, it contains one or more threads, and thread is a part of the process. Thread does not have its own data memory and heap memory. It's heap memory. It does not have its own data memory and heap memory, and it shares the data memory and heap memory with other threads of the same process. Okay, it shares data and heap memory with other threads of same process, whereas process has its own code memory, data memory, and stack memory. A thread lives inside the process, whereas process has its own memory space. A thread cannot live independently. It lives within the process, right? A thread cannot live independently. It lives inside the process. Whereas a process contains at least one thread. Process is independent and it contains thread. The thread depend on the process, right? So this concepts of process and threads, again, it's a revision of what you have seen in your operating systems in the previous semester, right? We have already seen these things. We just revise this. So there can be multiple threads in a process. The first thread, that is a main thread, calls the main function and occupies the start of the stack memory of the process. So there can be multiple threads. The first thread is the main thread. It calls the main function and it will be at the beginning of the stack memory of the process. So we have seen that in the memory organization diagram. The threads within the process, they share the code, data, and heap memory, right? Each thread holds separate memory area for stack. The thread will have separate memory area, and that memory area belongs to the process, right? From there, it will derive each thread will derive a particular separate memory areas for stack. Then the threads are very inexpensive to create. That means there are no overheads involved, right? Very inexpensive to create. So whereas processes are very expensive. That means it involves many OS overhead. To create a process, it requires certain time, right? And some system resources. Context switching is inexpensive and fast. Switching between different threads is inexpensive and fast because they share the same memory space as the process, right? Whereas context switching in case of a process is complex and it involves a lot of OS overhead and is comparatively slower. If a thread expires, that means after completion, its stack is reclaimed by the process because its stack was means it was derived from the process's stack area, right? So once the thread completes or it terminates, that means after it expires, its stack is again reclaimed by the process. Whereas in the case of a process, if a process expires, if a process dies, the resources allocated to it are reclaimed by the OS because the OS was the one which had created the process. So all the resources are reclaimed by the OS and all the associated threads of the process also die. When the process dies, the threads do not remain, right? Because threads are not independent. They are uh, what they reside within the process. If the process dies, the threads also die. So this is in brief the differences between the threads and the processes, right? It can be asked for 6 to 7 marks. You should write it briefly. Fine. In the next topic, we will see task scheduling and different scheduling concepts. So there are preemptive and non-preemptive scheduling techniques. So in your syllabus only preemptive scheduling is mentioned. So we will see different scheduling techniques for preemptive scheduling and we will look at some examples, numerical examples with those scheduling techniques in the next class.